The thunder rolled across the horizon as Daisy Wells gripped the letter in her trembling hands, the ink smearing beneath her tears. The promise her father made to the wealthiest cattle baron in Montana Territory would seal her fate, a marriage arranged without her consent, to a man whose reputation chilled her to the bone. It was 1876, and in the frontier town of Copper Ridge, a woman's choice meant little when measured against the weight of a man's ambition and a family's salvation. Daisy folded the letter and tucked it into her apron pocket. The morning chores wouldn't wait, even as her world crumbled around her. She stepped outside into the crisp autumn air, the sun just beginning to crest over the eastern mountains. Their modest homestead stretched before her 15 acres of hard-won land that her father had nearly lost to drought, debt, and desperation. The cattle needed tending, even on the day she learned she'd been promised to Harold Blackburn, a man 30 years her senior with 2 previous wives, both mysteriously deceased. But it wasn't just his age or his past that frightened her, it was the coldness in his eyes when he'd visited their home last month, surveying her as if she were merely another piece of property to acquire. Daisy made her way to the barn, her boots crunching on the frost-covered ground. Inside, the familiar scent of hay and livestock greeted her, a comfort in her distress. As she filled the water troughs, she heard the approach of hoofbeats, not the measured pace of her father returning from town, but the urgent rhythm of a gallop. She stepped out of the barn, shading her eyes against the morning sun. A rider approached, tall in the saddle, his silhouette unfamiliar. As he drew closer, Daisy recognized the dusty trail clothes and wide-brimmed hat of a cowhand. His horse, a magnificent chestnut quarter horse, slowed to a walk as he approached the fence line. "Morning, miss," he called, his voice carrying clearly across the yard. "Name's Zane Hollister. I'm looking for James Wells." "My father's gone to town," Daisy replied, approaching the fence cautiously. "I'm his daughter, Daisy. Is there something I can help you with, Mr. Hollister?" The man dismounted with fluid grace, removing his hat to reveal sun-bronzed features and eyes the color of a summer storm. He couldn't be much older than her 20 years, though weathered by life on the open range. "Your father hired me on last week at the cattle auction," he explained. "Said to report here today to help with the north pasture fence and the remaining herd." Daisy felt a flutter of confusion. "He didn't mention hiring anyone. We can't afford help these days." A look of understanding crossed Zane's face. "Madam, if you'd prefer I come back when your father returns." "No," Daisy said quickly, making a decision. "The fence won't fix itself, and we've already lost 3 calves to wolves this month. If my father hired you, there must be a reason." She opened the gate, allowing him to lead his horse through. Up close, she noticed the fine lines around his eyes, evidence of squinting against harsh sun and harsher winds. His clothes, while travel-worn, were clean and well-mended. "You can stable your horse in there," she said, gesturing to the barn. "There's fresh hay in the loft." "I'll show you the fence line after I finish the morning chores." Zane nodded, leading his horse toward the barn. "I'm handy with chores too, Miss Wells. Put me to work." For the next hour, they fell into an easy rhythm of tasks, feeding livestock, collecting eggs, mending a broken stall door. Zane worked efficiently, with the confident movements of someone who'd grown up on similar land. His presence lightened Daisy's burden, both physically and mentally, providing temporary distraction from the marriage that loomed in her future. "You handle yourself well around the farm," Daisy observed as they paused for water at the well. Zane drank deeply before answering. "Grew up on a place not too different from this, over in Wyoming Territory. My pa taught me and my brothers everything he knew before the fever took him." "I'm sorry about your father," Daisy said softly. "It's been 5 years now." His expression grew distant. "After that, the bank took our land. My brothers scattered to the winds. I've been riding from ranch to ranch since then, saving what I can to buy back your family land," she asked. A smile touched his lips, transforming his serious expression. That's the dream. A place of my own where no one can tell me to move on when the season ends. The sound of an approaching wagon interrupted their conversation. Daisy's heart sank as she recognized her father's team of horses coming up the road. "That'll be my father now," she said, smoothing her apron nervously. "I should warn you, he's been troubled lately. Our situation here isn't what it once was." Zane replaced his hat. "Most folks are just one bad season away from trouble out here, Miss Wells. No shame in that." James Wells pulled the wagon to a stop, his weathered face clouding with confusion at the sight of the stranger standing beside his daughter. At 55, he carried the burdens of widowhood and financial ruin in the stoop of his shoulders. "Papa, this is Mr. Hollister," Daisy called out. "He says you hired him at the cattle auction to help with the fence and the remaining herd." Her father's brow furrowed deeper as he climbed down from the wagon. "I don't recall hiring anyone, girl. Must be some mistake." Zane stepped forward, extending his hand. "Sir, we spoke last Tuesday. You were selling off the last of your prime steers, said you needed help before winter set in." James shook his head firmly. "I remember the auction clear as day, young man, and I made no such arrangement. We can't afford hired help." Daisy watched as understanding dawned on Zane's face, followed by something that looked like embarrassment. "My apologies, sir. Must have been another rancher. Names get confused on the trail." He turned to retrieve his horse from the barn. "I'll be on my way." "Wait," Daisy said impulsively. She turned to her father. "Papa, we do need help with that north fence, and after the wolves last week, we can't afford it, Daisy," her father cut in harshly. Then, seeing her expression fall, he softened his tone. "Besides, it won't matter soon enough. I've made arrangements that will secure our future." The letter in Daisy's pocket seemed to burn against her skin. "You mean my marriage to Mr. Blackburn?" James looked startled. "How did you? I found your letter this morning." Her voice trembled but held firm. "Papa, please don't do this. I've heard terrible things about him, his wives, rumors, and gossip," her father dismissed. "Harold Blackburn is a successful businessman who's offered to clear all our debts and invest in our land. All he wants is a young wife to care for his home and bear his children," Daisy added bitterly. "I'm to be sold to save this farm." James's face reddened. "That's enough, daughter. You'll show respect for my decisions." He turned to Zane, who stood awkwardly witnessing their family dispute. "You'd best be on your way, Mr. Hollister." Zane nodded, his expression carefully neutral. "Yes, sir. Again, my apologies for the misunderstanding." He looked at Daisy, something unreadable in his eyes. "Good day, Miss Wells." As he mounted his horse and rode away, Daisy felt as though her last hope was disappearing with him. She turned back toward the house, ignoring her father's calls, and fled to her small bedroom where she could finally release the tears she'd been holding back all morning. 3 days later, Daisy stood stiffly in the parlor of their modest home as Harold Blackburn inspected her like a prized mare at auction. At 53, Blackburn cut an imposing figure, tall, broad-shouldered, with silver streaking his dark hair and a neatly trimmed beard that did little to soften his sharp features. His ranch, the Double B, was the largest in the territory, with a grand house that overlooked the valley and a staff of 20. "You've raised a lovely daughter, James," Blackburn remarked, his gaze traveling over Daisy in a way that made her skin crawl. "A bit thin perhaps, but we'll remedy that once she's settled at the Double B." "Daisy's a good girl," her father replied. "Hard-working, educated at the mission school. Her mother taught her household management before she passed." "Excellent," Blackburn nodded approvingly. "I require an obedient wife who understands her place. My previous marriages were disappointing in that regard." Daisy forced herself to meet his gaze. "And what exactly is my place to be, Mr. Blackburn?" His smile didn't reach his eyes. "To run my household, entertain my business associates, and provide me with sons. Simple enough tasks for a woman who appreciates the opportunity she's been given. And if I don't appreciate it," the words slipped out before she could stop them. The room fell silent. Her father stared at her in horror while Blackburn's expression hardened dangerously. "Then I would remind you," he said softly, "that without this marriage, your father loses everything. The bank will take this land within the month. At his age, where would he go? What would he do?" He leaned closer. "Think carefully about your gratitude, Miss Wells." Daisy felt trapped, cornered like an animal. "When would this wedding take place?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. 2 weeks from today," Blackburn declared. "I've already spoken with the minister. We'll have the ceremony at my home, followed by a celebration befitting my position. I've ordered a dress from San Francisco. It should arrive next week for fitting." "So soon?" Daisy glanced at her father, who avoided her eyes. "I see no reason to wait," Blackburn replied. "Do you, James?" Her father cleared his throat uncomfortably. "No, Harold, your generosity demands prompt action on our part. Then it's settled." Blackburn reached into his jacket and withdrew a small velvet box. "I nearly forgot. This is for you, Miss Wells." He opened the box to reveal a diamond ring that must have cost more than their entire farm. Daisy stared at it, unable to move as he took her left hand and slid the cold metal onto her finger. The diamond caught the light, throwing fractured rainbows across the wall. "A perfect fit," he remarked. "Just as I anticipated." He released her hand and turned back to her father. "I'll send my carriage for her next Wednesday so she can see her new home before the wedding. My housekeeper will begin instructing her on her duties." After Blackburn departed, Daisy confronted her father. "How could you do this? You know the rumors about what happened to his wives." "What choice do I have?" James sank into his chair, suddenly looking every one of his years. "The drought took half our cattle. Your mother's medical bills took our savings. The bank won't extend our loan again. We could sell some of the land, to whom? Everyone's struggling. Blackburn is offering to clear all our debts and let me stay on to manage the place." He looked up at her, eyes pleading. "It's a good match, Daisy. You'll have security, fine clothes, servants." "And a husband who terrifies me," she whispered. Her father had no answer for that. That night, Daisy couldn't sleep. The diamond on her finger felt like a shackle. She removed it, placing it on her bedside table where it continued to glint accusingly in the moonlight. Outside, an owl called mournfully, its cry seeming to echo her despair. At dawn, she rose and dressed quietly, determined to find solace in her morning chores. As she approached the barn, she was startled by movement near the corral. Heart pounding, she grabbed a pitchfork before cautiously investigating. "Who's there?" she called out. A figure emerged from the shadows. "Just me, Miss Wells." Daisy lowered the pitchfork as recognition dawned. "Mr. Hollister, what are you doing here?" Zane stepped fully into the early morning light. "Fixing your north fence. Been at it since yesterday. But my father said we couldn't afford to hire you." "You're not hiring me," he gestured toward the pasture. "I needed a place to make camp for a few days. Figured I'd make myself useful in exchange." Daisy studied him suspiciously. "That's 3 miles of fencing." A smile quirked at the corner of his mouth. "I work fast. My father won't like this," she warned. "Then don't tell him," Zane suggested simply. "Far as he knows, the fence fixed itself. Or you can tell him after I've gone." Something about his practical solution, offered without expectation of gratitude, eased a knot in Daisy's chest that had been tightening since she'd read her father's letter. "At least let me feed you breakfast," she offered. "It's the least I can do." Over a simple meal of cornbread, eggs, and coffee, Daisy found herself telling Zane about her impending marriage. The words tumbled out, her fear and resignation spilling across the kitchen table between them. "I met Blackburn once," Zane said when she'd finished. "Worked a cattle drive for him 3 years back. He's not known for his kindness to those he considers beneath him." "And that would include his wife?" Daisy asked softly. Zane's expression darkened. "Especially his wife, I'd wager. There were rumors about his second wife, Elizabeth. She supposedly fell down the stairs, but one of the ranch hands told me her face was bruised days before the accident." Daisy closed her eyes briefly. "Papa says it's all gossip, that I should be grateful for the match. And are you grateful?" "I'm trying to be," she answered honestly. For my father's sake, but every time Mr. Blackburn looks at me, she shuddered. Zane's hand tightened around his coffee cup. 2 weeks isn't much time to find another solution. There is no other solution. The bank will take everything. She attempted a brave smile. Perhaps it won't be so terrible. The Double B is the grandest ranch in the territory. A gilded cage is still a cage, Miss Wells. Before Daisy could respond, they heard the sound of her father rising for the day. Zane quickly stood, thanking her for the meal. I should get back to the fence line before your father spots me, he said. Don't worry about bringing lunch. I've got provisions. He disappeared just as her father entered the kitchen, yawning and rubbing his eyes. You're up early, James observed, pouring himself coffee. Couldn't sleep, Daisy replied, busying herself with the dishes to hide her flushed cheeks. Papa, have you checked the north fence lately? Those wolves might return. Her father sighed heavily. I'll try to get to it today, though Lord knows there's enough to do closer to the house. No rush, she said casually. I was just wondering. For the next 5 days, Zane continued his work on the fence while Daisy brought him food when she could slip away unnoticed. During these brief meetings, they talked about everything: his years on the trail, her mother's death from consumption 3 years prior, books they'd read, dreams they harbored. With each conversation, Daisy felt the invisible thread between them strengthen, making her upcoming marriage even more unbearable to contemplate. On the 6th day, her father discovered the repaired fence during his rounds. Did you see this? He asked at dinner, bewilderment clear in his voice. The entire north fence fixed, reinforced, better than new, but who could have done it? Daisy kept her eyes on her plate. Perhaps Mr. Peterson from the next farm over. He mentioned owing you a favor for helping with his well last spring. Her father shook his head. Peterson's laid up with a broken leg. Besides, this is 3 days' work for 2 men at least. He eyed her suspiciously. You wouldn't know anything about this, would you? Before she could formulate a believable lie, a knock at the door saved her from responding. James rose to answer it, returning moments later with a grim expression. It's Harold, he said quietly. He wants to speak with you alone. Daisy's stomach clenched as she rose from the table. In the parlor, Blackburn stood by the window, his tall frame silhouetted against the fading light. Mr. Blackburn, she greeted him with a curtsy. This is unexpected. He turned, his face unreadable. Is it? I would think a fiancée would welcome her future husband's visit. Of course, she murmured. Would you like some coffee? Or perhaps what I would like, he interrupted, is an explanation for why you've been seen in the company of a drifter. The accusation struck her like a physical blow. I don't understand. One of my men saw you with a cowhand near your north fence line yesterday. Quite an intimate conversation by his account. Daisy's mind raced. He's been repairing our fence. I merely brought him water as one would for any laborer. Blackburn approached her slowly, deliberately. You're lying, Daisy. Your father didn't hire anyone. He can't afford to. He reached out, grasping her chin firmly. I won't tolerate deception in my wife. She tried to pull away, but his grip tightened painfully. You're hurting me, a small reminder of what's expected. His voice remained conversational, almost pleasant, making his actions all the more terrifying. Once we're married, you'll learn that my word is law in my household. Any disobedience will be corrected. The door burst open as her father entered. Take your hands off my daughter, he demanded, his voice shaking with anger. Blackburn released her immediately, his demeanor shifting to one of injured dignity. James, I was merely impressing upon Daisy the seriousness of her position. It seems she's been entertaining another man behind our backs. That's not true, Daisy protested. He fixed our fence, nothing more. Who fixed the fence? Her father asked, confusion evident. The cowhand who came looking for work last week, she admitted, Mr. Hollister. He did it without payment, as a kindness. James looked troubled. And you've been meeting with him? Only to bring him water and food, she insisted, though the half-truth tasted bitter. It seemed the Christian thing to do. Blackburn made a dismissive sound. Kindness, indeed. Young drifters don't work for free, James. He clearly has designs on your daughter. That's ridiculous, Daisy said, heat rising to her cheeks. He's merely passing through. Then you won't object when I have him removed from the territory, Blackburn countered smoothly. I still have friends in the sheriff's office. One word about trespassing, maybe theft of some cattle. No, the word burst from Daisy before she could stop it. He's done nothing wrong. The triumphant gleam in Blackburn's eyes told her she'd revealed too much. Your concern for this stranger is touching, my dear. Perhaps we should move the wedding forward. This Sunday, I think. Harold, her father interjected, that's only 3 days from now. The dress hasn't even arrived. She can wear whatever she has, Blackburn replied dismissively. I want this matter settled before further complications arise. After he left, her father turned to her with disappointment etched in every line of his face. Have you compromised yourself with this man, Daisy? No, father, how could you ask such a thing? Tears of frustration welled in her eyes. We've only talked. But he's kind and decent, unlike the man you're forcing me to marry. Forcing you, James repeated incredulously. I'm saving you from a life of poverty, saving our home, by selling me to a monster. Her father recoiled as if she'd struck him. You don't understand what's at stake. If we lose this place, where will we go? I'm too old to start over, Daisy, too broken. The defeat in his voice pierced her anger. This was her beloved father, who had nursed her mother through her final illness, who had taught her to ride and read and face the world with courage. Now he stood before her, diminished by circumstance, desperate to secure their future the only way he could imagine. I understand, Papa, she said softly, and I'll marry Mr. Blackburn on Sunday if that's what you truly believe is best. Relief flooded his features. It is, daughter. You'll see. In time, you'll come to appreciate the security he offers. That night, Daisy slipped out of the house after her father fell asleep. The moon illuminated her path as she made her way to the small creek where Zane had made his camp. She found him sitting beside a small fire, cleaning his revolver. He looked up as she approached, surprise and concern crossing his features. Miss Wells, is everything wrong? Everything, she confirmed, sinking down on a log across from him. Mr. Blackburn knows you've been helping us. He's threatened to have you arrested if you don't leave, and he's moved the wedding to Sunday. Zane carefully set aside his weapon. 3 days from now, she nodded miserably. He thinks you have designs on me. He wants to make sure his investment is secured. Investment. Zane's voice hardened. Is that how he speaks of you? Not in those exact words, but the meaning is clear enough. Daisy stared into the flames. I've come to warn you. You should leave at first light, head north toward Helena. He has friends in the sheriff's office. His accusations would be taken seriously. And what about you? The simple question, asked with such genuine concern, nearly undid her composure. I'll do what I must for my father's sake. Zane studied her across the fire, the flames reflecting in his gray eyes. And if there was another way, would you take it? What other way could there be? She asked bitterly. My father owes the bank $800. The drought killed half our cattle. Our crops barely yielded enough to feed ourselves, let alone sell. I have money saved, Zane said quietly, nearly $600. Daisy's head snapped up. What? 5 years of wages, most of it untouched. I've been saving to buy land. He leaned forward, his expression intense. It's not enough to clear your father's debt entirely, but it might convince the bank to extend terms. Why would you do that? She whispered. It's your dream, your future. Dreams can change, Miss Wells. His voice was steady, certain. I came here looking for work and found something I wasn't expecting. Her heart began to race. Mr. Hollister, Zane, he corrected gently. If I'm offering you my life savings, I think you can use my given name. Despite everything, a small smile tugged at her lips. Zane. I can't accept your money. It wouldn't be right. Then accept me instead. He moved from his place to kneel before her, taking her hands in his. Marry me, Daisy Wells, not for convenience or security, but because in the few days I've known you, I've seen your courage, your kindness, your strength. I want to build something with you, something real. Daisy felt dizzy with shock and a wild, unexpected hope, but we barely know each other. I know enough, he insisted. I know you deserve better than a loveless marriage to a cruel man. I know I want to wake up each day and see your face. I know we could make a good life together. He squeezed her hands. The rest we can learn in time. My father will understand that this offers him a way out as well. Maybe not the grand solution Blackburn promised, but one that won't cost his daughter's happiness. Tears slid down Daisy's cheeks, and if he doesn't agree, Zane's expression grew solemn. Then we leave, tonight. I have friends in Colorado who would take us in until we find our footing. You do that, leave everything behind. What exactly would I be leaving? He asked with a gentle smile. My worldly possessions fit in 2 saddlebags. My future is wherever I make it. His eyes held hers steadily, preferably with you beside me. The enormity of the decision before her made Daisy tremble. To reject security for uncertainty, to choose love over obligation, these weren't choices women like her were typically allowed to make. And yet here was this man, this stranger who had become so much more in such a short time, offering her the one thing Blackburn never could: choice itself. I should think about this, she said finally. It's too important to decide in haste. Zane nodded, releasing her hands reluctantly. Dawn is in 6 hours. I'll wait for you here until then. Whatever you decide, Daisy, know that these past days have meant everything to me. She returned home, her mind spinning with possibilities. In her small bedroom, she lit a candle and sat at her desk, drafting 2 letters, one to her father explaining her choice. Should she decide to leave? The other to the bank, formally requesting an extension of their loan based on a partial payment. When both were complete, she laid them side by side, staring at the diverging paths they represented. As the eastern sky began to lighten, Daisy made her decision. She changed into her sturdiest dress, packed a small bag with essential items, and pinned her mother's cameo brooch to her collar. The diamond ring Blackburn had given her she left on her bedside table, a glittering rejection of everything he represented. She crept downstairs, intending to slip out before her father woke, but found him already seated at the kitchen table, a cup of coffee cooling before him. "Going somewhere, Daisy?" he asked quietly. She clutched her bag tighter. "Papa, I can't marry Mr. Blackburn. I won't." Instead of the anger she expected, her father merely looked tired. "I suspected as much when I heard you moving around all night. The cowboy." "His name is Zane Hollister," she said. "He's offered to help with the bank loan. He has savings. And if it's not enough," her father interrupted, "if the bank refuses, what then?" Daisy straightened her shoulders. "Then I'll still be with a man who sees me as a person, not property. We'll find a way forward together." James studied her for a long moment, seeing perhaps for the first time not his little girl but the woman she had become. "You love him then, after less than a week?" "I don't know if it's love yet," she answered honestly, "but I know it could be given time. And I know what I feel for Mr. Blackburn will never be anything but fear and resentment." Her father sighed deeply, running a hand through his thinning hair. "Blackburn will be furious. He'll foreclose on the loan immediately. Zane and I have a plan for that too." She approached the table, placing the letter to the bank before him. "It might work, Papa, and if it doesn't," she hesitated, "you could come with us to Colorado." James picked up the letter, scanning its contents. "You've thought of everything, haven't you?" "I tried to," she said softly. "I don't want to hurt you, Papa, but I can't sacrifice my life, not even for you." To her surprise, a sad smile formed on her father's weathered face. "Your mother said almost those exact words to her father when she chose me. He was a banker who wanted her to marry a lawyer." He rose slowly from his chair. "She would be proud of you, Daisy, braver than I've been." Hope bloomed in her chest. "Then you understand. I understand that I've been a coward, willing to sell my daughter's happiness to save my own skin." He shook his head in self-disgust. "No father worthy of the name would do such a thing." "What will you do?" she asked. Face Harold Blackburn like a man, for starters. His expression hardened with newfound resolve. "Then face the bank after that." He shrugged. Perhaps Colorado isn't such a bad idea. I hear the fishing is good." Tears of relief and gratitude filled Daisy's eyes as she embraced her father. "Thank you, Papa. Don't thank me yet," he warned. "We have hard days ahead, but we'll face them honestly at least." Together, they walked to the creek where Zane waited, his horse saddled and ready. When he saw Daisy approaching with her father, wariness crossed his features until he noticed their joined hands. "Mr. Wells," he greeted cautiously. "Miss Wells." James stepped forward, his expression stern but not unkind. "My daughter tells me you've made her an offer, Mr. Hollister." "Yes, sir, I have." "And you believe you can provide for her, keep her safe?" Zane met the older man's gaze directly. "With everything I have and everything I am." "Not much of an answer from a man who owns little more than his horse and gun," James observed dryly. "It's all I can honestly promise," Zane replied. "That and my heart." James studied him for a long moment before turning to Daisy. "And this is truly what you want, daughter? This uncertainty over the security Blackburn offers?" "It is, Papa," she confirmed, "with all my heart." Her father nodded slowly. "Then I won't stand in your way." He extended his hand to Zane. "But I expect you to make an honest woman of her immediately. No daughter of mine runs off with a man without proper vows." A grin broke across Zane's face as he shook James's hand firmly. "Yes, sir. I know a preacher in Silver Creek who won't ask too many questions." "Silver Creek is nearly a day's ride," James noted. "Then we'd best get started," Zane replied, helping Daisy onto his horse before mounting behind her. As the sun crested fully above the horizon, they set out for Silver Creek, Daisy and Zane riding double, with James following on his own horse. They left behind a hastily penned note nailed to the Wells' front door, informing Harold Blackburn that his engagement was dissolved and his ring awaited his collection. They reached Silver Creek by nightfall, finding Reverend Thomas just finishing his evening meal. Despite the late hour, he agreed to perform the ceremony in his small church, with his wife and James Wells as witnesses. Under the soft glow of lantern light, Daisy and Zane exchanged simple vows, their hands trembling slightly as they pledged their lives to one another. "She was promised to another and betrayed," Zane said softly as he placed a simple gold band on her finger purchased hastily from the town's only jewelry shop just before it closed. "Promise me instead, Daisy. Promise me truth and partnership in good times and bad." "I promise," she whispered, tears gleaming in her eyes. "No matter what comes, we face it together." As Reverend Thomas pronounced them husband and wife, Daisy felt a weight lift from her shoulders. The future remained uncertain. The bank might still take her father's land. Blackburn might still seek revenge, but for the first time since her mother's death, she felt hope blooming within her. That night, in a small room above the town's only hotel, Daisy and Zane became truly husband and wife. His touch was gentle, reverent, so unlike the possessive grip Blackburn had exerted on her. In his arms, she found not just passion but tenderness, not just desire but respect. "I never thought I could feel this way," she confessed in the quiet darkness afterward, her head resting on his chest. "So complete." "Nor did I," he admitted, stroking her hair. "I've spent years wandering, never letting myself get attached to anyone or anything. Then you offered me breakfast and changed everything." She laughed softly. "A simple meal in exchange for a husband. That seems like an unfair trade on your part." "Best bargain I ever made," he assured her, pulling her closer. "Though I suppose we should discuss what happens next." "The bank," she sighed, reality intruding on their brief moment of contentment. "We'll ride to Helena tomorrow," Zane said. "Speak to the bank manager directly, make our case. With my savings and a solid plan for the ranch, we might convince them to extend the loan. And if they refuse, then we find land elsewhere. Colorado, maybe, like you suggested to your father, or further west to Oregon. I've heard the Willamette Valley is fertile ground for those willing to work it." Daisy propped herself up on one elbow to see his face in the moonlight streaming through the window. "You'd give up Wyoming, your family's land." Zane's hand came up to cup her cheek. Home isn't a place, Daisy. It's people, it's this what we're building together. She kissed him then, marveling at how natural it felt, as if they'd known each other for years instead of days. Whatever challenges tomorrow brought, she would face them with this man beside her, their fates now inextricably linked. The confrontation with Harold Blackburn came sooner than expected. As they prepared to depart for Helena the next morning, they found him waiting outside the hotel, his expression thunderous, two of his ranch hands flanking him. "So this is how you repay my generosity," he said coldly, addressing Daisy while ignoring the men beside her. By running off with some saddle tramp, James stepped forward protectively. "Harold, it's over. Daisy has made her choice." "A choice?" Blackburn's laugh was harsh. "Women don't make choices in matters of business, James, and that's what our arrangement was, business. One you're now breaking." "Then take the land," Daisy said firmly. "But you can't have me. I'm married now." Blackburn's face darkened dangerously. "A convenient claim. Though I wonder how legal such a hasty ceremony might be." "Legal enough," Zane interjected, his hand resting casually near his holstered revolver. "Performed by Reverend Thomas last night with witnesses. You're welcome to check the church register." For a tense moment, it seemed Blackburn might resort to violence. His ranch hands shifted uneasily, hands hovering near their weapons. Then, abruptly, his demeanor changed, a calculating smile replacing his anger. "Keep your farm hand, girl. You'll regret your choice soon enough when winter comes and you're starving." He turned to James. "As for you, old friend, the bank will hear about this betrayal today. I suggest you start packing your meager possessions." With that parting threat, he mounted his horse and rode away, his men following close behind. "He'll make good on that threat," James said grimly. "We should hurry to Helena." They reached the territorial capital by midday, proceeding directly to the First National Bank where the Wells family loan was held. To their dismay, they discovered Blackburn had indeed sent word ahead. The bank manager, a thin man named Wilkins, received them with poorly concealed disdain. "Mr. Wells, we received a telegraph from Mr. Blackburn this morning informing us of your changed circumstances." Wilkins adjusted his spectacles nervously. "I'm afraid the bank must call in your loan immediately." "We're prepared to make a substantial payment today," Zane countered, placing a heavy pouch of coins on the desk. $580, more than half the outstanding balance." Wilkins glanced at the money but shook his head. Under normal circumstances, that might be sufficient. However, Mr. Blackburn has made a compelling case that the Wells property represents a poor credit risk. "Because he wants it for himself," Daisy interjected. "Surely you can see he's manipulating the situation, Mrs. Hollister." Wilkins addressed her with obvious reluctance. "The bank's decision is based on financial considerations, not personal matters. The fact remains that your father's ranch has underperformed for 3 consecutive seasons." "Due to drought that affected the entire territory," James protested. "Conditions that have already improved this year." The banker remained unmoved. "Nevertheless, the loan is now due in full, $823 to be precise." "We're $243 short," Daisy calculated quickly. "Surely you can extend terms for that small amount, given our good faith payment." Wilkins hesitated, his resolve visibly weakening in the face of her earnest appeal. "I would need additional collateral. Something of significant value." Daisy's hand went instinctively to the cameo brooch at her collar, her mother's most treasured possession. Before she could offer it, however, a new voice entered the conversation. "I believe this might help." They turned to find a well-dressed gentleman standing in the doorway, holding a leather portfolio. In his 50s, with silver-streaked dark hair and a neatly trimmed mustache, he carried himself with the confidence of wealth and position. "Judge Parker," Wilkins said, rising quickly. "What an unexpected pleasure. I was passing by when I noticed James Wells and his daughter entering your establishment." The judge approached the desk. "I understand there's some difficulty with their loan, a minor matter," Wilkins assured him, suddenly solicitous. Simply a question of timing and adequate collateral. Judge Parker nodded thoughtfully. As it happens, I owe James a debt I've long meant to repay. He saved my son from drowning in the Gallatin River some years back. He opened his portfolio and withdrew several documents. I'd like to stand as guarantor for the remaining balance. Would these property deeds serve as adequate collateral? Wilkins examined the documents, his eyes widening. These represent significant holdings in Helena itself, more than adequate, Your Honor. Excellent. The judge turned to James. Consider it interest on a long overdue debt, old friend. James appeared stunned. Thomas, I never expected, nor should you have, Judge Parker interrupted with a warm smile. Good deeds should be rewarded, especially in these difficult times. He glanced meaningfully at Wilkins. I trust the bank will offer reasonable terms moving forward. Of course, Your Honor, the banker replied hastily. Very reasonable. Perhaps a 2-year extension at reduced interest. Within the hour, the matter was settled. The Wells Ranch was secure, the loan restructured on favorable terms, and Blackburn's attempt at retribution neutralized. As they left the bank, Judge Parker invited them to dinner at his home, where his wife Martha embraced Daisy like a long-lost daughter. Thomas has spoken often of your father's heroism, Martha explained. When we heard rumors of Harold Blackburn's arrangement, we were concerned. That man has a dark reputation among those who have done business with him. His previous wives, Daisy began hesitantly. Martha's expression grew somber. Both dead under questionable circumstances, though nothing could be proven. The second, Elizabeth, was my second cousin. She wrote to me of her fears just weeks before her accident. Yet he remains free, respected even, Zane observed bitterly. Money and influence shield many sins in the territories, Judge Parker acknowledged. Though perhaps not forever, there are investigations proceeding quietly. He raised his glass. But tonight we celebrate happier matters, your marriage and the securing of your future. That night, as they rode back toward Silver Creek under a canopy of stars, Daisy marveled at how quickly fate could change. Just days ago, she had faced a future of fear and subjugation. Now she rode beside a husband she was rapidly coming to love, their path forward uncertain but filled with possibility. "What are you thinking?" Zane asked, noticing her thoughtful expression. "That sometimes the greatest blessings come disguised as misfortune," she replied. "If not for Blackburn's proposal, you and I might never have met." He reached across the space between their horses to take her hand. "Then I suppose I owe him a debt of gratitude, though I'd prefer not to deliver it in person." She laughed, the sound carrying joyfully on the night air. "Wise decision, husband, very wise indeed." The following months brought challenges as they worked to restore the Wells Ranch to productivity. With the bank loan secured, they invested in new breeding stock and repaired long-neglected fences and outbuildings. Zane proved himself an exceptional rancher, his years of experience on various cattle operations giving him insights that even James, for all his decades of farming, had never considered. By their 6-month anniversary, the ranch was showing signs of recovery. The spring calving season brought healthy new additions to their small herd, and the first cutting of hay yielded twice the previous year's harvest. When snow blanketed the land that December, they faced it from the warmth of a home filled with love and hope rather than fear and resignation. Blackburn made no further direct attempts against them, though they occasionally heard rumors of his continued displeasure. Judge Parker's quiet investigations into his past continued, gathering momentum as more former employees of the Double B found courage to speak about what they had witnessed in that grand house overlooking the valley. On their first wedding anniversary, as they sat before the fireplace in the ranch house that was now truly their home, Daisy presented Zane with news that would change their lives once more. "A baby," he repeated in wonder, his hand gently covering her still flat stomach. "Our child." "Due in summer," she confirmed, her eyes shining with happiness. Father is already planning to build a cradle. Zane gathered her into his arms, overwhelmed by a joy he had never expected to know. When I fixed that fence a year ago, I never imagined it would lead to this. No fences between us now, Daisy murmured, resting her head against his chest. Only bridges to whatever comes next. As the years passed, their family grew first with Thomas James Hollister, born on a warm July morning, then 3 years later with twin girls, Sarah and Elizabeth. The ranch prospered under their combined care, eventually expanding to include neighboring properties as other farmers moved west in search of gold or easier climates. Harold Blackburn's downfall came not from Judge Parker's investigations, but from his own cruelty. A new young wife, his fourth, fled to her family in St. Louis with tales of abuse that could no longer be ignored or dismissed as accidents. When territorial marshals arrived at the Double B with warrants for his arrest, he resisted, dying in the ensuing gunfight. Few mourned his passing, and many slept easier knowing he was gone. On their 10th anniversary, Zane took Daisy to the creek where he had once camped and proposed. The children stayed with their grandfather, giving them a rare night alone together. Under the same stars that had witnessed their hasty decision a decade earlier, they renewed the promises they had made to each other. "Any regrets?" Zane asked as they lay on a blanket, her head resting on his shoulder as they gazed at the constellations above. "Not one," Daisy answered without hesitation, "though I do sometimes wonder what would have happened if you hadn't stopped here looking for work." "I would have found you anyway," he said with absolute conviction. "Some things are meant to be, no matter what stands in their way." She smiled, hearing in his words the same certainty that had given her courage to choose him all those years ago. "She was promised to another and betrayed," she quoted softly, remembering his words on their wedding night. "Then promise me instead," he finished, drawing her closer. "Best promise I ever made anyone keep." As they walked back to their home in the gentle light of dawn, Daisy reflected on the strange and wonderful journey that had brought them to this moment. A desperate arrangement, a kind stranger, a leap of faith, all converging to create a life more beautiful than she could have imagined. The diamond ring that once felt like a shackle had been sold years ago, the money used to buy books for the small school they'd helped establish in town. In its place, she wore the simple gold band Zane had placed on her finger in that Silver Creek church, a perfect circle representing the endless love that had grown between them. Not a possession to be claimed or a prize to be won, but a choice freely made and renewed each day, the promise of two hearts finding home in each other against all odds.